Amazing moment. 8 puppies born, then an incredible discovery shocks doctors and inspires hearts. The room buzzed with excitement as Bella delivered her puppies, each tiny miracle breaking free into a world of chaos and love. Sarah's heart swelled with relief. These pups were a much-needed blessing in their tight financial situation. Jake's laughter danced through the air as he cuddled each wriggling bundle of fur, his dreams of becoming a veterinarian shimmering brighter with every little coo. Yet, shadows loomed with each passing day as one pup, Winston, stood apart, his peculiar markings a stark contrast to his siblings, his energy oddly boundless. Especially concerning were the symptoms Sarah observed, increasingly alarming, more than just mischief within the litter. Working long shifts as a veterinary technician in their small town, Sarah balanced bills and hopes amidst the thrum of daily demands, her spirit often fraying against the weight of expectations. Winston's unusual behavior began to tug at her subconscious, a hidden worry creeping in. What if something was wrong? Jake's enthusiasm was infectious, but Sarah felt a knot tighten in her chest every time she looked at Winston, that ugly combination of fear and pride churning inside her. As the days turned into weeks, Sarah confided in her colleagues. A mix of support and discomfort arose. Winston's challenges were met with intrigue, enough to catch the attention of a prestigious university seeking to study him. Excitement flared in the clinic. Yet for Sarah, the potential recognition hung like a thick fog, casting confusing shadows over her aspirations. What would it mean for her, as a technician, to let go of her precious dog into a world fueled by ambition? Is it worth it? She questioned quietly, the thoughts swirling like leaves in a storm. She felt the harsh whispers at work, the skeptical glances from the one mentor who once inspired her, but now seemed to lurk in envy. "You can't handle the pressure, Sarah," echoed through her mind like a taunt. Each moment spent away from home increasingly strained her resolve. Could she risk Winston's fate for the sake of recognition when her financial stability hung by a thread? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The burden of weighing Winston's future against her own insecurities deepened within her. Jake, bright-eyed and full of belief, brought with him a glimmer of hope. The pressure mounted as Sarah prepared for the looming conference that could change everything. The stakes rose. Her heart raced as she watched Jake dream and hope, unaware of the tumult inside her. Then came the moment before the stage, the chaos within her mind swirling as she sensed the path diverging. Failing meant losing sight of their dreams, yet success could tear them apart. The tremor in her hands shook her resolve, fingers trembling at the thought of losing her control over everything she loved. What if she failed? How could she protect Jake and make the right decision for Winston, whose life teetered on the edge of uncertainty? With one deliberate breath, the anxiety crushed against her chest like a weight. She needed to choose, but the fear of everything unraveling, of risking the only life she knew for a glimmer of possibility, engulfed her entirely. The conference loomed, each tick of the clock exacerbating the tension coursing through Sarah's veins. As she stepped onto the stage, the spotlight swallowed her whole, illuminating the shadows of her doubt. This was the moment she had anticipated, yet it felt like a precipice, a dizzying edge over which she might tumble into oblivion. Her heart raced in rhythm with the audience's murmurs, their expectation palpable, yet she fought against the instinct to retreat. She inhaled deeply, forcing the thoughts of her mentor's skepticism to the back of her mind. No, today wasn't about him or the layers of fear he wrapped around her spirit. Today was about Winston, her curiosity morphing into undeniable emotional investment, a commitment that thrived amidst uncertainty. Jake's hopeful gaze anchored her, and she caught a fleeting glimpse of his bright future. It wasn't just about them. It was about every dog that needed a voice, a chance, a family. With deliberate poise, she began her presentation. As she introduced Winston, a wave of warmth washed over her, reminiscent of the nurturing moments shared with the tiny, rambunctious puppy. She detailed each anomaly, weaving in observations that transcended medical descriptions into the realm of emotional narratives. This was a dog, yes, but he represented much more. He was a testament to bravery through adversity. Yet as her voice resonated through the room, her confidence wavered slightly. She noticed the expressions shifting in the audience, the nods of intrigue clashing with the raised eyebrows of disbelief. Did they consider her passionate insight mere emotional bias? That inner critic raged, amplifying the whispers of inadequacy. The fear clutched her throat, almost suffocating. Were they judging her not for the information she provided, but for being simply who she was? A technician? An ordinary woman with no towering credentials? Sarah swallowed hard, resisting the urge to cloak herself in a shield of self-doubt. Instead, she steeled her focus and leaned into the narrative. She shared the bond with Jake, and how their lives intertwined with Winston's plight stoked her resolve to bring awareness to his struggles. As the passion ignited her words, Sarah felt the fire within, combating the heavy pull of her insecurities. The final moment approached, and as she concluded, she glanced into the faces before her, seeking signs of understanding. A rare smile broke through, belonging to a panel judge whose expression was open and engaged. Perhaps this was her ally. Perhaps there was a flicker of recognition beneath all that skepticism. When she stepped off the stage, a surge of adrenaline coursed through her body, thrilling yet exhausting. Sarah craved validation, but dismissed the urge to seek it externally. Each heartbeat echoed her internal credo. Her worth was not determined by applause, but by her commitment to her passion and to Winston's future. However, before she could fully savor her achievements, a familiar face approached from the crowd. Her mentor. Again, the tight knot of anxiety tightened in her chest, an unwelcome reminder of his past criticisms. "Sarah," he began, his voice smooth but heavy, "we need to discuss your presentation." With determination settling deep within her, she met his gaze, awaiting whatever words would follow. This was not merely about her work, this was about self-assertion, and she was ready to confront whatever was coming. The moment had arrived to face the very doubts that had once held her hostage, to stake her claim in a world that often overlooked the voices of those who dared to care too fiercely. As the conversation began, Sarah felt the scales tipping. Something within her had shifted irrevocably. The time had come to face the past, and her own emerging strength. What would she discover about herself in this confrontation? Would it lead to the freedom she sought, or unfurl new layers of conflict to navigate? Sarah squared her shoulders, her heart a steady drumbeat against the skepticism creeping back in. She met her mentor's gaze with enough resolve to sever the threads of hesitation binding her to the past. "Let's discuss," she replied, her voice steady despite the tempest of anxiety swirling inside her mind. The auditorium's noise receded. It was just the two of them now, suspended in a moment of confrontation that felt both confronting and liberating. He gestured toward a quieter corner, away from the ebb and flow of the distracted crowd. She followed, each step echoing her determination to stand firm in her truth. The walls felt confining, yet she knew they also bore witness to her growth. "Your presentation," he began, his tone calm yet scrutinizing, "had potential, but I have concerns." The subtle weight of dismissal hung between them, and fury ignited within her. Did he think she would cower? Did he truly believe his past criticisms could still wound her as deeply? Taking a breath, she chose to defy him, refusing to become the smaller version of herself he had once manipulated. "This wasn't just a presentation," she said, her voice rising impulsively as she leaned into her conviction. "I didn't just share statistics or clinical observations. I shared a story that matters." His brow furrowed at her assertiveness, as though he hesitated to recognize the woman standing before him. That flicker of uncertainty was what she had sought, yet it only served to embolden her further. Sarah continued, a torrent of passion spilling from her lips, "And in doing so I honored every dog, every individual who struggles to find their voice. What I saw in Winston's eyes, his pain and courage, was undeniable, and it deserves to be heard. The confrontation shifted. Instead of retreating into his role as her mentor, her defiance brought out a new side of him. But was it enough? With more experience, you could convey these points even better, he replied, his words laced more with resignation than authority. Experience is subjective, she retorted, her confidence rising. What has more weight, credentials or the ability to connect? He hesitated. The doubt she once feared now surged as empowerment in her veins. This was her moment, not just in front of him, but within herself. She had grown. She had embraced a different narrative. As the seconds ticked by, she sensed the palpable acknowledgement he began to wrestle with, and it surprised her. Maybe, he finally admitted, his guard lowering, your emotional approach could inspire others. It's not typical in our field, but perhaps it's what's needed. The spark of possibility ignited a warmth in her chest, a blend of disbelief and hope. Had she just witnessed a flicker of acceptance? This was a new pathway opening ahead, one where her voice mattered in meaningful ways. She could transform skepticism into respect. Thank you, Sarah said with newfound gravity, no longer pleading for his validation, but asserting her own worth. His presence did not define her future. As they concluded, a sense of liberation washed over her. She was no longer tethered to the doubts that had once crowded her thoughts. Through this confrontation, she felt a metamorphosis, an awakening to her own narratives and the fierce urgency of her mission. Yet, as she prepared to leave, she caught a glimpse of Jake in the distance and the slight shake of his head, an unwelcome reminder of the harsh realities still ahead. He was waiting for her, concern etching lines across his face, perhaps sensing the uncharted complexity still lurking within her heart. The next step wasn't merely redemption through dialogue, it was about how she would carry this momentum forward. What decisions would define her next stage of self-discovery? Would she choose to champion her voice while still embracing those who needed her? This was only the beginning of a much deeper journey into uncharted territories, both personal and professional. Would she have the courage to navigate that path? The stakes were high, and freedom was calling. The air felt charged as Sarah stepped away from her mentor, her pulse still quickened by the unexpected exchange. She was buoyed by the thrill of asserting her voice, yet shadows loomed as her thoughts drifted back to Jake. The worry creasing his brow hinted at unease, fueling the self-doubt that still lurked beneath her newfound confidence. What did he say? Jake's voice cut through the clamor around them. Sarah forced a smile, but her heart sank. She was still grappling with the weight of reality. He acknowledged my presentation, said it had potential. She didn't want to admit how big that potential felt, like the dawn breaking after a long night. Jake scrutinized her, his supportive facade faltering. That's good, right? But you don't seem convinced. It's complicated, she replied, an edge of frustration creeping into her tone. How could he understand when she herself was engulfed in uncertainty? The moment felt triumphant, yet she also sensed the churning storm of expectations rising around her. They ambled toward a quieter street, seeking solace amidst the bustle. The near chaos felt ever present. She was tasked not just with growing her voice, but finding a way to align it with the lives she wanted to impact. I need to figure out my next steps, she murmured, the urgency of her voice hinting at greater depths. Are you going to keep pushing for that emotional approach in your work? Jake asked, his concern evident. You know the risks. Some people just want the bottom line. His words hit hard, triggering a swell of indignation. Her gut twisted. Risk was part of the journey. Maybe it was precisely the leap into vulnerability that would stir deeper connections. They can have their statistics, she said fiercely, but I refuse to silence the stories that matter. His expression softened, but the tension hung between them. He wanted to protect her, yet she craved authenticity. I just want you to be careful, he finally stated, his voice thick with concern. Careful. The word played in her mind like a haunting echo. In that moment, the path before her stretched into the infinite, lined with potential and steeped in peril. Choices loomed heavy, She needed to embrace risk, not only in her work, but in her personal life. Relationships dictated much of her experience, and she felt an urgent desire to craft them in her own way. "I know there will be challenges," she confessed, "but I'm tired of being cautious just because it's expected." Jake nodded, a sliver of understanding passing between them. "So what's next?" She paused, allowing the gravity of her answer to settle. "I want to create something, a program, a platform, that gives voice to the unseen." A spark ignited in her chest as she envisioned bringing deeper stories into the light, amplifying the voices of those like Winston. "But that's a lot of work," he warned, eyes glinting with a mixture of encouragement and skepticism. "Exactly." The confidence flowed through her once more, illuminating the chaotic shadows threatening to hold her back. It's time to move from the small victories to real transformation. Yet even as resolve washed over her, a knot twisted in her stomach. Launching a new initiative would mean stepping into the public eye, risking the vulnerability she had only started to embrace. With every ounce of hope shimmering within her, she also faced the specter of potential failure. Could she truly sustain the courage it would require? Just then, her phone buzzed in her pocket. The notification from her mentor caught her attention. The subject line read, "Follow-up discussion." Her heart raced. Was this a sign, or merely another hurdle? Jake leaned closer, intrigued. "What does it say?" Her hand trembled as she opened the message. It was time for another round, for clarity or confusion, empowerment or doubt. The moment felt electric, a crossroads moment ripe with anticipation. Would this follow-up ignite her plans or unravel them? She took a breath, bracing for the possibilities unfolding before her. Sarah's breath caught as she opened the email, her eyes scanning the words rapidly. "Let's meet to discuss your proposal in detail. I believe there is much we can explore." A surge of exhilaration pulsed through her veins. This was the validation she had sought, the nudge she needed to take her dreams seriously. Yet beneath that exhilaration, doubt gnawed at the corners of her mind. Was she truly ready? "Are you okay?" Jake's concerned voice cut through the haze of her thoughts. I think he wants to support me." Each word felt like a tentative step on unfamiliar ground. Her heart raced as she grasped the opportunity before her, an opportunity to transform ideas into reality, to step into a role she felt unprepared for, while cravenly wanting it all the same. "But there's a catch," she added, her voice tightening. "What if I can't live up to the expectations?" "Okay, let's break this down," Jake said, his tone steady. "What's the first step?" Her mind raced with potential steps, visions of bold plans intertwining with terrifying doubts. "I have to map it out. I need to write a proposal, just like he suggested." The thought of drafting her vision filled her with both dread and determination. This was her chance to articulate the story she wanted to tell, the platform to give power to the unheard voices she had always felt connected to. "Start small. Define what this program will look like, who it will impact, and how you will measure success," Jake advised, his supportive demeanor acting as a tether to her resolve. Measure success. The concept felt like a double-edged sword. Success had always been defined by others, by cold metrics. But what if she measured success by the depth of connection? The lives changed, the voices amplified. An unexpected clarity washed over her. "I want the program to focus on personal narratives, raw, real stories that can inspire." "Now we're getting somewhere." Jake smiled, his enthusiasm palpable. Yet the gravity of what she was proposing sank back in, weighing heavily on her. She was not just creating a platform. She was making herself vulnerable to public scrutiny. She glanced out at the passing street vendors, their vibrant displays a stark contrast to her inner turmoil. She would be establishing something deeply personal, something inherently tied to her, the very act of sharing herself with the world. The thought sent chills down her spine. "Also," she continued as if to calm the whirlwind in her stomach, "I have to seek collaborators. I can't build this alone." Jake nodded, his expression shifting to one of careful contemplation. "Who do you have in mind?" Tapping her finger against her lips, she pondered. I could reach out to Winston, see if he can lend his experience. He knows the struggles, the weight of being unheard. Good choice, Jake encouraged. But what about the rest of your team? You'll want to choose individuals who embrace your vision of authenticity. Her heart quickened again, a flutter of excitement emerging alongside the persistent anxiety. She was stepping into a realm where alignment of values mattered above all. You're right. But how do I know if they will share my passion for storytelling? I think you'll know once you meet them, he replied. A tinge of doubt whispered through her, a nagging fear that not everyone would understand her aim or support her vision. That clarity from the email dimmed again, and the reality of self-doubt loomed larger than before. She could feel the cracks in her confidence. Even with a plan, the fear of disappointing herself and others simmered violently just below the surface. As she leaned against the brick wall, her mind spiraled through potential pitfalls. Each step felt laden with implications. Let's tackle this one block at a time, Jake suggested, breaking her reverie. His gentle reminder grounded her momentarily. You're right. I can take it step by step. She straightened her spine, pulling on the threads of renewed determination. Keep that mindset. You'll be surprised at how far you'll go. But just as Jake's encouragement took root, a tremor of anxiety shot through her. Each block she would need to build in her new venture whispered of risks, personal and professional. Would she falter when it mattered? The vibrancy of the city around her began to dim, and the email now felt like it carried the weight of an insurmountable expectation. Would the follow-up from her mentor ignite her resolve, or plunge her deeper into fear and uncertainty? The question hung in the air like a thick fog, lingering as they turned the corner, shoving her worries further into a melting pot of doubt and determination, beckoning her toward an uncertain future. Would she have the courage to rise to the occasion, or be swallowed by the very dreams that ignited her spirit? Next steps awaited, but with them came choices steeped in vulnerability. As they walked, she pondered the crossroads ahead, unsure how many more would come before the life she envisioned could manifest. The time had come to face herself, fears included. The following morning, Sarah woke up to the sound of her alarm blaring, its relentless beeping pulling her from the depths of restless dreams. She sat up, rubbing her eyes as the sunlight streamed through the curtains, illuminating her small apartment. With a quick glance at her phone, she remembered the email that had stirred her hopeful ambitions and sent pulses of anxiety through her veins. She had a meeting with her mentor later that day, a chance to present her ideas formally for the first time. Despite the shroud of doubt that had wrapped around her like a heavy blanket, she felt a flicker of determination ignite within. In the face of her uncertainty, today was a crucial step towards making her vision concrete. The idea of sharing personal narratives was not just about storytelling. It was about weaving together threads of connection and understanding among those she'd hoped to reach. She slipped out of bed and headed to the kitchen, her routine offering familiar comfort. As she brewed coffee, her mind raced with the practicalities of her proposal. Words swirled in her head like leaves caught in a gust of wind. What should she emphasize? What stories did she want to highlight? Would Winston resonate with her vision? After sipping her steaming cup, she grabbed her notebook from the table, the pages already filled with rough ideas and notes from her countless brainstorming sessions. Paradoxically, the more she wrote, the more she unearthed not just her fears, but her strengths, reminders of who she was and what she represented. She found herself scribbling potential collaborators, names that held possibility. And this time, her heartbeat synced to the rhythm of excitement rather than apprehension. She allowed herself to become lost in thought, envisioning the impact of her envisioned platform. The stories of resilience waiting to be unveiled electrified her senses. They would not simply be narratives, they would be vessels for healing and validation. Every word she penned felt like an invocation of her deepest aspirations, and with each sentence, her confidence pulsed stronger. As lunchtime approached, Sarah picked up her phone to text Winston. Accountability and collaboration were the foundations upon which she sought to build her dream. She drafted the message, her heart racing from both anticipation and dread. Would he be receptive to her ideas? What if he turned her down? Anxiety nibbled at the edges of her resolve. With her finger hovering over the send button, a wave of clarity washed over her. This was the very essence of vulnerability she had been grappling with, the essence of sharing her vision and the courage to invite others into it. If she wanted to create something impactful, she had to take these risks. With a deep breath, she hit send and felt a weight lift from her shoulders almost instantly. As she prepared for her meeting later in the day, Sarah's thoughts coalesced around the themes of authenticity and connection. She considered what questions her mentor might ask, and she mentally rehearsed her responses. If he probed her on metrics of success, she would assert her focus on the resonance of stories rather than traditional analytics. The belief in her vision echoed louder than the anxiety, and for the first time Sarah felt she was not only on the precipice of her dreams, but was ready to leap. On her way to the meeting, the pulse of the city around her filled her with energy. Each step carried her closer to her goal, and as she approached the meeting space, an unexpected sense of calm enveloped her. The air hummed with possibility, as if the universe conspired to support her endeavor. She entered the building, her heart pounding in rhythm with her footsteps. As she approached the conference room, however, doubt flickered back, a fleeting moment where she questioned whether her vision was truly worthy. Would her mentor see value in her unorthodox approach? The door swung open, and the familiar figure of her mentor greeted her with an encouraging smile. The meeting space was filled with bright light, reflecting the hope stirring within her. As she took a seat across from him, she set her notebook down with purpose. "Well, Sarah," he began, "I'm eager to hear what you've been working on. Let's take this moment to dive into your vision." With a deep breath, she glanced down at her notes and then back up, her eyes locking onto his. She felt a surge of determination swell within her. The time had arrived to unravel the narratives that lay within her. But what would happen if the weight of her dreams became too much to bear? As the dialogue began, she sensed a turning point ahead, ever closer. Would this be the moment that galvanized her resolve, or one that fractured her aspirations and revealed her deepest fears? As Sarah settled into her seat, her heart raced, and the palpable tension of the moment wrestled with her hopes. Winston leaned forward, resting his chin on his clasped hands, exuding an air of anticipation. His presence steadied her nerves, and she could see in his eyes a genuine eagerness to understand her vision. "Let's start with the core of your project," he encouraged. "What drives it? What's your mission?" Taking another deep breath, Sarah gathered her thoughts, choosing her words carefully. "I believe everyone has a story worth sharing. These narratives can bridge divides and create understanding, healing, even inspiration." Her voice faltered only slightly, but determination flickered like a lit fuse. "What I want to create is a platform where individuals feel safe to share their truths, something that cultivates connection." Winston nodded, his eyes sparkling with interest. "That's a powerful ambition, Sarah. But how will you ensure these stories resonate? How will you reach those who need to hear them most?" Her mind raced, and as she began to explain her ideas about community outreach and integrating multimedia elements into the platform, the walls of apprehension slowly began to crumble. She elucidated her vision of using social media, podcasts, and even workshops to engage with a broader audience. With each word, her passion unraveled, intertwining with her growing conviction. "This won't just be a platform," she continued, "but a movement. We'll harness the stories of resilience that often go untold, allowing the voices of the unheard to echo in powerful ways." Suddenly, a shadow crossed Winston's face. It wasn't skepticism, but rather a hint of concern that warranted a deeper inquiry. "That's commendable, Sarah, but you need to consider sustainability. What metrics will you use to prove its impact?" A silence filled the space, pressing down on her. Metric systems, analytics. These concepts jolted her from the creative vortex she'd been constructing. Though she had savored the warmth of her passion, the chill of reality clawed at her resolve. "I want to focus on qualitative impacts rather than traditional metrics," she asserted, surprise shaping the strength of her voice. "I believe in the story's resonance rather than just numbers." Winston's brow furrowed, a signal that he had much to ponder. "It's a valid perspective, but how do you plan to measure an emotional resonance? People are complex." His question sank in deeper than she anticipated. Did she even know how to track the emotional impact she sought to nurture? The pulse of anxiety throbbed once again in rhythm with her heartbeat as she faced the enormity of her vision. If she didn't grasp the intricacies that underpinned emotional narratives, was she equipped to lead this endeavor? More internal questions reverberated within her as she struggled to articulate her defense against traditional analytics and the need for genuine connection. Maybe I can, she started hesitantly, focus on feedback through surveys, construct workshops for narrative sharing, and document stories submitted back to us. I could collaborate with psychologists to analyze benefits, trends. Winston leaned back, arms crossed, contemplating her response. The tension in the room crackled as she felt dragged between doubt and determination. She had not only to defend her vision, but to mold it into a credible venture. As the possibility of vagueness loomed dangerously above, a flicker of inspiration ignited. Winston, she continued, leaning closer. What if I brought in case studies, real-life examples? I could profile individuals and their journeys, then track the impact it has on both the storytellers and the audience. Now that's a promising direction, he replied, shifting in his chair. The blend of qualitative stories with the backbone of real data could reinforce your vision. But remember, the emotional aspects need to remain front and center. Relief washed over her momentarily, but the shadows of uncertainty still lurked beyond the bright optimism she tried to sustain. Could she truly navigate this challenging balance? She had begun to carve out a compelling vision, but wresting it from mere dream to grounded reality would demand more than just inspiration. As their discussion progressed, the conversation transitioned into finer points of operation, timelines, and funding avenues. The tension coursed through her, not as a negative force, but as fuel to her resolve. She could feel growth swelling in her core, guiding her to confront fears while refining the vision that jittered in her heart. At last, the meeting reached its natural conclusion. Sarah felt a flood of gratitude as Winston expressed his appreciation for her innovative ideas. Yet, even as they stood to shake hands, a whirlwind of thoughts surged in her mind. What would be the next step? Could she truly draft a proposal that encapsulated everything they had discussed? Leaving the conference room, Sarah understood she stood at a critical juncture. The fire inside her burned with renewed vigor, but looming questions taunted her. Would her vision survive the challenges to come? And how could she ensure it resonated deeply with those who needed it the most? The elevator doors closed, but as she descended, her heart raced not only from anxiety but awareness. The time had come for real action. With Winston's mentorship as a guiding light, Sarah needed to find the courage to translate aspirations into tangible results. What would she discover about herself as the next phase unfolded? The elevator dinged softly as it reached the ground floor, the doors sliding open to reveal the bustling office environment. Sarah stepped out, her thoughts still swirling from the meeting with Winston. A newfound sense of purpose pulsed through her veins, yet the weight of uncertainty tugged at her like a persistent shadow. She took a moment to collect herself, letting the din of the office serve as a backdrop for her racing thoughts. In that moment of quiet contemplation, Sarah felt the pressure of expectation mounting. Her projection of a transformative platform had ignited something within her, but the intangible nature of emotional impact loomed large. How would she weave together personal narratives with the structured measures Winston insisted upon? With each step toward her desk, the vision of her project began to crystallize more vividly. Perhaps the first move should involve reaching out to individuals interested in sharing their stories. By building a network of early supporters, she could create a foundation for feedback and establish a clear channel for the raw narratives she sought. Brushing her fingertips against the keyboard, Sarah began drafting an email. Her heart raced as she formulated her thoughts. "Dear potential contributors," she typed, infusing warmth into her words while establishing a clear purpose. She outlined her vision, inviting them to share their stories, emphasizing their importance and the potential impact. But as she crafted her message, the hesitance emerged, whispering doubts that prickled at her confidence. "Am I qualified to lead this?" she thought, swallowing the knot growing in her throat. "Will they even resonate with me?" Each question felt like an anchor, pulling her deeper into uncertainty. Yet, right alongside those questions, the thrill of daring to stand at the helm stirred her to finish the email. She pressed send, releasing the words into the world, a mix of exhilaration and trepidation coursing through her. The remainder of her morning was a blend of productivity and anxiety. Meetings blurred into one another, colleagues engaging in discussions that felt worlds apart from her internal quests. While their words drifted through the air, Sarah's mind refocused on her project, the drive to resonate with heart and emotion. Yet the echo of Winston's skepticism lingered, nudging her to solidify her plans with tangible strategies. After lunch, Sarah returned to her desk, armed with a notebook. A blank page stared back at her, daring her to fill it with actionable steps. Metrics, she whispered under her breath, recalling the nod from Winston. The word now shimmered as a challenge rather than an obstacle. What would effective metrics look like in a realm dominated by emotion? As she jotted thoughts, ideas began to flow. Monthly feedback surveys could gauge emotional impact, she wrote. Workshops could serve as a testing ground for narrative sharing. Each suggestion felt like a small victory, peeling back layers of doubt and replacing them with resolve. But then, out of nowhere, memories of failed projects and past criticisms flooded her mind, creating a swirling tempest of self-doubt. What if I can't manage the feedback? She questioned harshly. What if it all falls flat, and I'm left exposed? Those inner critics whispered poisonous retorts, momentarily challenging her newfound clarity. Drawing a deep breath, Sarah pushed back against the tide of negativity. No, she resolved. I will not be defined by past failures. With renewed determination, she committed to the drafting of her proposal, determined to incorporate both the emotional resonance she held dear and the analytic backbone Winston had urged her to consider. The challenge loomed, but in it, she sensed an opportunity for growth, an evolution reflecting not just her ambition, but her burgeoning understanding of personal resilience. She was learning to embrace discomfort as part of the journey, a ticket to the discoveries that awaited. As the day drew to a close, Sarah completed the first draft of her proposal, adrenaline coursing through her from the day's progress. But with it came an unsettling realization. She needed to defend this proposal to higher authorities, perhaps even Winston again. Was she truly ready to present a vision she was still so freshly defining? With her finished draft resting heavily on her conscience, Sarah felt the urgent pull of her goal. The next meeting with Winston seemed inevitable, yet it scared her. Could she present her thoughts with confidence, or would vulnerability expose too much? She felt the excitement of possibility dancing with the reality of pressure, and the tension made her pulse quicken. As she switched off her computer and bundled her things, Sarah understood one thing. The real journey was just beginning. Would she dare to share not just her project, but the layers of herself woven within it? The moment of truth awaited, and with it, endless possibilities, and perhaps a confrontation with her deepest insecurities loomed ahead. Arriving at the office the next day felt distinctly different. Sarah's pulse quickened with each step toward her desk. The stakes were higher now, and anticipation clung to the air like summer humidity. The draft of her proposal rested in her bag like a weight, a tangible reminder of her commitment. She could almost hear it whispering, taunting, "Are you ready?" The morning stretched out before her. Colleagues exchanged light banter, and the dull roar of productivity enveloped the space. For Sarah, though, every second felt like an eternity. The meeting with Winston loomed ahead, and she couldn't shake the sense of dread mixed with excitement. Would he recognize her effort, or would her ambitions crumble under his critical eye? Determined to prepare, she adjusted her posture and resolved to review her proposal one more time. She pulled out her laptop, fervently flipping through her notes and aligning metrics with emotional impact, metrics Winston couldn't dismiss. Each point validated her conceptual framework. It was as if her ideas danced on the screen, waving their flags high. Yet, familiar doubts crouched in the corners of her mind, ready to pounce. Memories of past failures flickered like a slideshow, projecting shadows of disappointment. What if I get tongue-tied? She questioned herself. What if I misinterpret his feedback yet again? Even the thought felt heavy. Uncertainty swirled around her like a storm cloud, threatening to rain on her burgeoning hope. But this time, Sarah resisted. Instead of succumbing to the fear, she paused her racing thoughts and grounded herself in the moment. She recalled the sense of excitement she felt when she first hit send on the email to potential contributors. There was power in those stories waiting to be told, and she often pulled strength from the idea of fostering connection. That was her launchpad. With renewed focus, she breathed deeply, flipping through the sections of her proposal with care. Each constructive metric she had defined became not only a measure of success, but also a bridge between her emotional vision and the analytical validation that Winston demanded. She even jotted additional notes, bullet points that illustrated potential impacts with concrete examples. As the clock inched toward the meeting time, she felt an urge to talk openly with her colleagues, a move to quell her nervous energy. "Ever feel like you're about to step onto a stage?" she asked an acquaintance. "I've got to pitch something important today." "Absolutely," her colleague replied, eyes sparkling with understanding. "Just remember, you're sharing something valuable. Be you." They'll respond to that. Thrust into the support of this conversation, a quiet resolve knitted itself in her. She needed to remember that authenticity could be her biggest asset, not just detailed metrics or polished presentations. With this small affirmation, her heart swelled with courage. The meeting room loomed ahead, its sleek lines and bright lights summoning her unwelcome anxiety. Could she dismantle the walls of her apprehension? The door to the conference room hinged open, and Sarah stepped in, greeting Winston and a few others with a composed smile masking the whirlwind inside. As they took their seats, she felt the overwhelming urge to clarify her intentions. "I appreciate the chance to present today," she started, her voice steady, despite the faint tremor inhabiting her resolve. "I am excited to share not just the numbers, but what these stories can mean to all of us." With every word she spoke, the initial trepidation began to fade. The room settled into receptiveness. Perhaps she was more ready than she originally thought. The narratives interlaced with metrics echoed across the table, and she was shocked to find herself animatedly debating her points. For a moment, time slipped away, and she wasn't just fighting the dull shadows anymore. Yet, just as confidence began to solidify, Winston's brow furrowed, and an unspoken challenge flickered in his gaze. "This is solid, Sarah, but let's dig deeper. What might fail?" The question rang clear and sharp, cutting through her burgeoning assurance. She wasn't merely defending her proposition now. She was being challenged to confront the very essence of her fears. "Here we go," she thought, her heart racing once more as she prepared to peel back the layers of her plan and lay bare the vulnerabilities within. The moment to truly test herself had arrived, and with it the potential for either profound growth or an echo of doubt that might haunt her. As she opened her mouth to respond, she realized that the stakes were higher than just the proposal. The real test lay in how she would face what could inevitably become a defining moment. Would she find a way to navigate the uncertainties that had long anchored her? The answer danced just outside her reach, waiting to unfold, and Sarah leaned into the challenge, ready to embrace whatever lay ahead. As Sarah stood at the crossroads of her aspirations, her heart thrummed with resolve during the meeting that could redefine her professional journey. Winston's sharp inquiry cut through her momentum, propelling her into introspection. "What might fail?" echoed in her mind, creating a space for profound self-reflection. This was not simply about metrics. It was about the heart of the narrative she sought to amplify. "I understand that vulnerabilities are everywhere, especially in fostering emotional connections," Sarah began, her voice steadying like a ship gaining momentum through choppy waters. "The fear of not reaching enough people, of seeing these powerful stories fall flat, lurks behind every decision." An authentic admission pulsed from her lips, illuminating the risk inherent in her ambition. As she articulated her fears, she felt a shift, a magnetic pull towards honesty that enveloped the room. "But as I venture into this, I realize vulnerability can be our greatest teacher. If this program fails, it won't diminish the validity of the stories waiting to be told. It will teach us what needs to change, how to connect more deeply." Winston nodded thoughtfully, and the shift in his demeanor invigorated her. "That's a refreshing perspective, Sarah. Failure as a stepping stone, not a wall," he affirmed, his voice softer than before. She sensed the challenge transforming into an unlikely ally. Emboldened by this acknowledgement, Sarah leaned into a newfound confidence. "I aim not for perfection, but connection. I want to integrate learning from failures as part of the narrative. With each revelation, she watched her fears dissolve into a foundation of strength, a cornerstone for her evolving project. The discussion shifted organically as she revealed concrete examples of emotional metrics that could assess impact. Surveys to gauge engaged storytelling, collaborative workshops where stories blossom like spring blooms, and community testimonials to illuminate changes in perception. These narratives tell us how deeply we resonate with our contributors, she concluded, her spirit soaring. Winston interjected, his tone laced with respect. This approach could invite real engagement, rather than fabricating success by numbers alone. But what if you also constructed a system to adapt to failures as they arise? The thought struck her like lightning. Adaptation was the crux of every living entity. That's it, she exclaimed, a spark igniting within. I could introduce breakpoints, allow contributors to tell us what's resonating, what's failing. Their feedback will guide the evolution of the initiative. With clarity sharpening her vision, Sarah felt the fabric of self-doubt loosen. She was not merely defending her project, she was shaping it into a vibrant, evolving entity that breathed like the stories she cherished. As the meeting wound down, she took a deep breath, savoring the shared excitement in their discussion. While she had come to seek validation, she had discovered something far more valuable, the ability to embrace uncertainty with intention. We have a great foundation to work with here, Sarah, Winston said, an approving smile gracing his lips. Let's continue to refine these ideas. I think you are onto something special. The words washed over her, a mixture of affirmation and liberation. In that moment, Sarah realized she had conquered a significant internal barrier. Her confidence had transformed and solidified, metamorphosing from a soft whisper of hope into a commanding voice of authenticity. As she left the meeting, the world outside pulsed vibrantly. The sunlight danced along the streets, illuminating the path ahead that felt both exhilarating and challenging. Sarah was empowered to forge onward, equipped with a plan, insight, and the understanding that vulnerability could lead to genuine connection. She grabbed her phone, eager to share her success with Jake. Just wrapped up the meeting, she texted, followed by a burst of emojis. It went even better than expected. They're on board. His prompt response fueled her confidence further. Knew you'd crush it. You've got this, girl. With each supportive message, the swirl of self-doubt began to fade, replaced with a firm determination to act. That evening, Sarah sat down resolutely at her kitchen table, revisiting her proposal to weave in the insights gathered from the meeting, embracing vulnerability and building a dynamic path forward. Her ambitions were now grounded in not just passion, but also courage and realism. Sarah understood that true fulfillment lay in the authenticity of her approach, a journey crafted through stories and experiences, unencumbered by the pursuit of perfection. As she finalized her plans, she envisioned not just a program, but a movement, a vibrant tapestry of narratives that would inspire, unite, and ignite the voices of the unheard. The dawning realization settled within her. She didn't just want to share stories, she wanted to craft a legacy rooted in connection, allowing every voice to resonate. With this clarity, she smiled, the weight of uncertainty now transformed into a thrilling adventure. In the days to come, she would share her proposal, answer the challenges that might arise, and foster a network of storytelling, breathing life into every word and narrative. The truth was hers to discover. This was not just a project, but a dynamic ode to authenticity, where every story held the power to illuminate a path to be followed. Now, with newfound purpose and framed by unwavering resolve, the time had come for Sarah to step boldly into her role as a conduit of change. She was ready to embrace the journey ahead, one story at a time. You need to subscribe now to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories that will inspire you. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and spread the message of transformation. Comment your reactions and theories about this gripping conclusion, sharing your own journey of overcoming uncertainty. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Don't wait even one more second to share. Embrace the power of storytelling together.